prevention is a lot less expensive than cure, okay? So instead of trying to rely on technology in the future, why not try to prevent groundwater pollution today? So that was the thinking back in 2000. It became clear that some of these upgrades to septic systems were going to be very expensive. And we're talking kind of in the $10 to $15 to even $30,000 range, depending on site conditions. With that in mind, the county commission at the time said, we like everything about your ordinance except this one part. So let's say that it's going to take effect in 2015. So every other part of the ordinance about inspections and permits and all that stuff went into effect in 2000, as it had been before. But the part about the upgrades to the systems, based on lot size and wastewater flow, was essentially postponed for 15 years. And now here we are 10 years later, almost 11, and our office is starting to think about how we're going to deal with this issue. So that's why we're rolling out this presentation to neighborhood associations all around the county. Some folks that already have one of these secondary or tertiary treatment units, and what we're calling, a high-tech unit, let's say. Some folks that already have those, the changes that you're going to see in 2015 are going to be that you're going to have to periodically get a sample of the wastewater coming out of the final treatment of that unit to see if the unit is still functioning properly. I've handed out some of these charts, and there's about 20 of them there floating around. Oh no, actually, they're on that table. If you could just grab one and just kind of just try to disperse them. And I can email this separately as a separate attachment when I email the presentation to the officers of the neighborhood association. This chart basically is a representation of lot size and the total flow in gallons per day. So that first line, okay, if your lot size, okay, now this is 1 acre right here, and this is the gallons per day, okay? And this is design flow, it's not actual flow, it's a design flow. So if your lot size was 3/4 of an acre, you could produce a design flow of 375 gallons per day. If your lot size is smaller than 3/4 of an acre, the amount of wastewater you can produce decreases. If your lot size is greater, the amount of wastewater you can produce increases. Wastewater flow is based on the number of bedrooms in the home, because the number of bedrooms indicates the number of persons who could live there. Okay, so we don't care if you have 1 bathroom or 4. It's really based on what is the possible occupancy of this home. If there's 4 bedrooms, the design assumptions are that in the first 2 bedrooms, there are 2 people in each bedroom, and 1 person per bedroom thereafter, okay? So these are design considerations, and so this is why 3/4 of an acre is important. As the lot size decreases and the wastewater flow increases, you get into this second category. So if you fall somewhere between these 2 lines, you'd need to have secondary treatment, which is something in addition to the septic tank. And if you fell into this final category, which is the smallest lot size and the most wastewater generated, it would be a more high-tech system that might include something like disinfection or some other type of treatment. And with each of these, the cost increases. I know you can't see that very well. That's why I put it on the wall over there. And that's just to try to get a conversation started with people about their individual lot. And let me repeat what I said at the beginning. By the end of this presentation, and after we've all left the room, if you still got questions, what is it going to mean for me? All you have to do is call Chris or I. We'll look up all the information we have about your current septic system and the lot size, and we'll say, based on what you have today, by the time 2015 came around, this is what you would have to add to that system to make it comply. Okay, so you've got between now and I think January 1st, or maybe December 31st of 2014. So you've got roughly 5 years to figure this out. Okay, so what does it mean for 2015? Well, many systems will just already be okay because they were built under the 2000 ordinance and they're in that first category of relatively large lot and relatively low flow. Or they were built under the 2006 ordinance. Now, there was a change in our ordinance in 2006, and that's because the state made the disposal area larger. So they said, you know, before where you used to have a 300 square foot disposal area in your backyard, now it needs to be 375 or whatever the number was. So in 2006, we had to make some changes to our ordinance simply to remain in compliance with what the state was implementing. If your system was repaired up to code since the 2000 ordinance, you're likely to be okay. But as I said, if you've got one of these higher tech systems in place now, you'll likely have to do some sampling on that in 2015. Systems built before 2000. And so I'm basically giving you 3 categories now. The first category is not much to worry about, maybe nothing to worry about. The second category is there's going to be a few things you're going to have to do, but it's not going to break the bank. Okay? The third category is an expensive category where you're going to be making some serious financial considerations. Okay? So we're in that second category now. Systems built before 2000 will have to add some simple components if the performance standard is met. And by performance standard, I'm referring back to that graph that shows those sloping lines that basically says lot size and flow per day. Okay, and I'm going to go through each of these 4 items now. What would you likely have to add to your system if you were in that category? Okay, an effluent filter, and I'll show you another picture of that. That's just a picture of the outlet end of a septic tank. So from that point, the wastewater is flowing out through the pipes and out into the trenches, okay? And it's basically a filter at the end of that system that catches small bits of solid matter that would otherwise get out into the gravel and into the trenches and clog it up and shorten its life. So this is a maintenance point, basically, where about once a year or so, or when the tank is pumped, you basically pick up that filter, hose it off, and put it back in. That's what that unit looks like when it's disconnected from the tank. It's basically a piece of PVC pipe, and that blue part is the actual filter part. So that would have to be installed, and those can be installed in an existing septic tank in a relatively uncomplicated way. An observation board is the next thing you might have to add. This is basically a troubleshooting feature, so that after the system has been in use for a while and it begins to have some problems, you could basically get access to the end of the disposal area and see, is there any wastewater even getting down here? Is it moist down there? Is it dry? What does it look like? So this is an access point. So that you can do troubleshooting, because if there's no wastewater even getting to this trench, then the problem is further upstream. If this trench is saturated, is the other trench saturated? And you can begin to do some troubleshooting about what might be going wrong with my system. Maybe a heavy truck drove over through my backyard when I was doing some work back there, and it tilted something so that no water is getting over to this trench anymore. This is a way to find out. This is just another picture of observation ports, except in this case they're not in gravel, they're in those plastic chambers. This is the same picture we showed before. A lot of septic tanks don't have risers. When the 2015 requirements come into effect, it'll be a requirement. This essentially makes it known where this tank is, and it ensures that we can actually get access to it to pump it out.